takes more than property-based testing to be a great software engineer. This is episode 136 of the Soft Skills Engineering Podcast, and I am your host, Jamison Dance.
I'm your host, Dave Smith.
I now want to make my generative tests all rhyme. I feel like that's a thing you could do with a complex enough property-based testing suite.
What do you mean? What would rhyme? The inputs?
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you familiar with property-based testing, Dave?
That's like real estate, right?
Yeah, you use is it a dowsing rod? Is that the split thing?
Yeah, where you find water under the ground.
That would be more comprehensible than some of the docs I've been diving through. No, it's really cool and you should check it out. And that's not what this show is about. Soft Skills Engineering is a weekly advice show where we answer all of your non-technical questions about the technical field of software development.
That is exactly what it is. And this week we'd like to thank some patrons who have made this show possible by contributing at the level that gives them a shout out every single week. They are Matthew Wodowicz, the Agile Ventures Charity, Zach Grannon, David Jackson, Nick Cantar, Sean Clayton, and Chris Hogan. Thank you so much. If you'd like to support the show financially, head over to Patreon, or rather, head over to our website, softskills.audio, and click Support Us on Patreon. Thank you so much to all of our new patrons this week. It's been great. We really appreciate your financial support.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually had a friend ask me if that means that he could make me say Sonic the Hedgehog every week. Oh. And I told him, yes, my dignity does cost $20 a month.
Well, it turns out that patron did come through this week. I don't know if you saw the email.
Oh, all right. I didn't. But
And when we bill Sonic the Hedgehog on January 1st, we will begin saying Sonic the Hedgehog every week. Wait, we just said it early. Crap.
Oh, no. All right. I'm going to dive into the questions. This is from an anonymous listener. I'm a software developer, and as such, I get paid nicely. My family doesn't think I work hard enough or deserve the money. Any advice?
Your family is right.
Have you tried paying them off?
With all your money. Oh,
yeah.
Now do you think I make too much money?
I think you deserve a little bit more of the money than I thought you did. And for another $20, I will think you deserve all the money. This is interesting. I wonder if the family comes from a non-technical background, or there are people working blue-collar jobs or something.
Or they're a bunch of doctors, and they're like, wait, you make how much? I had to go to 15 years of med school.
You know, I actually feel that. I have a friend who is an auto mechanic, and I also have friends who are doctors. And I feel from both sides judged for how stupidly easy my job is. I don't have to be on call the same way doctors do. People's lives don't hang in the balance. It's just physically. So the biggest physical dangers are that I'll get short hip flexors from sitting down all day. I don't know.
Short hip flexors.
Hey, you laugh. It's a real problem,
Is
Dave.
it really?
I have to stretch for minutes a day.
I thought you were just making it up.
No, it's a thing. If you sit all day, your hip flexors shorten. And it kills millions a year.
Now I feel like an insensitive noob. I'm so sorry.
Well, don't worry, Dave. Death is coming in the form of short hip flexors. You'll rue the day you made fun of this. But yeah, I don't know. It is pretty easy in some ways. Or not easy. It is cushy in some ways.
Yeah, you sit all day. You can listen to music while you work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies give you free food.
Sometimes it's stressful. I don't know. I feel like I would be stressed. I'm capable of being stressed out by any job, though.
Yeah.
Show me a cushy job, and I'll show you how I can mine stress out of it.
If stress was currency, you would be rich. You could find it everywhere. Every time I turn over a rock, I find stress.
Yep.
I think there's a snarky remark you could make to your family, which is, well, if I make too much, why don't you get into it? How would that go over?
Yeah. Depends on if I'm filming a reality TV show of this conversation or not. Let me set up some cameras and then go for it. I'll line up some sponsors.
Oh yeah, that episode would get a ton of good ratings.
Yeah, watch people be horrible on camera. Go. Okay, just say it, Dave.
Well, if you think I make too much.
But first try and bribe them. Okay, use both of our suggestions. First pay them off, then tell them they're not smart enough to do your job. Got it.
People say that a lot, though. It's like, I think my dad used to say this to me when I was a kid, when I would say, oh, those people get paid so much money. And he's like, sounds like you need to get into that business. Thanks, Dad.
I feel like I get a lot of people that make me uncomfortable the other way by saying, "Oh, your job is so hard. I could never do that." Like,
oh, really?
Just saying the word programming, they have some block in their head that makes them feel like that's for smart people, and then there's other work that they can do. And I feel like it kind of goes both ways, where there's this idealized view of what my life is like, and then I feel like I should show them the Excel spreadsheet that I produced today, and then that would correct both people.
And they'd be like, "You got paid to do what? This?"
Yeah. Or like, you had to sit in a meeting for how long
yeah.
to do this?
Software engineering is kind of a young industry. Like, lawyers and doctors are traditionally the high-paid, white-collar workers. And software engineering kind of just swooped out of nowhere. And actually, it wasn't even that high-paying of a job until about 10 years ago. Coincidentally, about the same time all these boot camps started popping up.
Yeah.
Not a coincidence at all, actually.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a prestige. It sounds like you're saying it's a prestige thing then. If you were a high-paid lawyer, no one would say, "Oh, you don't deserve all this money." Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. I think it was more I think it's a change. I think the thing is that the industry has changed. 15 years ago, software engineers were not exorbitantly paid, and now they are. That's really fast for that big of a change. And so people are like, "Wait, what? I never even heard of programming job. What is this? Why do you make so much money?"
Yeah. I don't think I have any real answers for this, as opposed to all the real answers I normally have. I don't know, because in some ways it is objectively physically cushy,
mm-hmm.
and it is paid pretty well. I guess I'm wondering why that's a bad thing, though. Why aren't they high-fiving you, saying you made it? Congratulations.
You're getting paid too much to do too little.
Yeah.
Look, take this question on the surface of it. My family doesn't think I work hard enough or deserve the money. What's the harm in just saying, "You know what, family? You're right. I don't work hard enough. I don't deserve this much money. What a privilege."
Yeah.
You win. Now what?
What are you going to talk about at family gatherings now, though? If you just eliminate a whole subject.
I know we used to talk about how much I don't deserve my income, but I agree. Let's talk about something else. How about the weather?
Some of it could be... I've found it hard to explain what I do to people who aren't technical in a way that I feel like captures what I actually do. I always find myself resorting to pretty broad analogies.
Yeah, me too. And they're always weird.
And then I feel like, it doesn't reflect the reality of what my life or what my job is like. And maybe some of it is that they don't understand really what you do or why someone would consider it valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm saying this, though, this doesn't feel like a thing where you could explain your way out of it. This feels like a gut feeling that you can't just say well, let me talk to you about how the futures market work, and then I'll explain why it's valuable to be I don't know. I don't know if you could just explain stuff to people if they feel like your job is too easy.
Okay, well, in that case, if it's a gut thing, just redirect the rage. Speaking of futures market, why don't we just call out some Wall Street traders who make way too much money for basically gambling?
But they have to do all that cocaine, and it's really hard on their systems.
And by the way, this same group of people is why your 401k lost half its value in 2008. So, just send your rage that way.
Okay. Yes. I like it. You're saying go into politics. Redirect populist rage at some other group and profit from it. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. I feel like my family is happy for me.
Yeah, mine is too. I've never told my extended family how much I make, but I think they're happy that I'm not living on, minimum wage.
Yeah. Now that we've bragged about how good we have it, sorry. We can't help you. Just try and just switch families. Have Dave's family.
Okay, no. Next time they do that, start generating some tears. Practice crying on demand. Generate some tears and just whip out $100 bills and wipe your tears off your face.
Okay. Become a human reaction GIF.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like it. That'll win them over.
They'll be like, "Oh, I was wrong."
I feel like there's something here we haven't quite gotten to the center of, though, which is that it's hard in ways that are not physical or even necessarily tied to how many hours you put in. Some programming jobs involve long hours, but some of them don't. But there's this idea of some of it is knowledge work is hard to measure and quantify, and we run into issues with that with bosses often, where you'll get people who want butts and seats for a certain amount of time, or who feel like you're goofing off because you're not like sitting down quietly at your desk, or I don't know. There's these perceptions of productivity that come from the manufacturing age, where you sat down and put in an amount of physical work and got a unit of value out of it. And it doesn't work that same way. And to some people, I think that feels vague or unclear or easy. But then there's also another part of it where programming is it's intellectually tiring. And then there's all kinds of cultural and social issues that make it very hard for some people to be like accepted in the industry or to feel comfortable in the industry. There's a lot of different axes where I think it's hard in ways that don't necessarily apply to other kinds of jobs. And I don't know how you get that across to people without trying to explain stuff to them. And again, I feel like gut feelings are hard to explain away.
Okay, here's what you could do. Say, how much money would I have to pay you to spend 40 to 50 hours a week sitting in college math class?
Or replace college math class with a thing that they do not want to do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or are you saying that your job is literally college math class?
Yeah, I mean, I chose math because I think programming is strenuous mentally in the same way that math class is strenuous mentally. And I'm just going to make a crazy assumption here that the people who are making this comment don't really value your work. I mean, and your work is a lot like math, so maybe choose math.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like make it visceral. You know, you were saying you had a hard time coming up with analogies that make it clear, but I think that helps. And like sometimes if you ask people like, would you rather run a mile or take a really hard test? You know, a lot of people will choose the mile, right?
Yeah.
Because knowledge work is hard. It hurts.
Yeah, it is hard. It's not some arcane art that is secret and impossible to decipher, though.
No.
I think the pool of people who could figure it out is pretty huge.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel torn between. I feel like you could go swing to one end of the pendulum and just talk about how hard it is and how intricate the problems you deal with are, and make it kind of like, I don't know how to explain what that would feel like. It feels like kind of self-aggrandizing in a way, where
Sure.
you're saying like, I am so smart because I have to solve all these problems. Or you could swing the other way and say like, look at how much money it makes us to mine ad data or whatever
Yeah.
thing you do that is tied to money.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those feel like, try them both and then see what happens next.
You can A/B test them and then present the results to your family along with the p-value and confidence intervals.
Yeah, and tell them how hard it was to do.
I honestly though, if someone said this to me and my family, I would just say, "You're right. I am overpaid." And honestly, I believe that software engineers are at the present moment overpaid. I think there will
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, salaries are so high; they've grown so much over the last 10 years, and I think it's more of a function of the plentiful quantity of VC money and just the land rush that is just happening in the IT industry in general. Frankly, I'm surprised it has lasted this long. Because remember, I started out in 2003 when I was one of 200 applicants for 3 jobs. You know, I mean, that's how it was. And so I don't know if it'll ever go back to that, but what we have right now feels like just a golden age, just completely crazy.
Yeah, well, I will take it.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I agree and I like the income. It's great.
I think it's still pretty unevenly distributed as well, though. I think there are certain parts of the industry that feel much more like that than others, and I think there are plenty of people that will probably hear you and be like, "I'm not overpaid. What are you talking about? I would love to feel overpaid."
Yeah, I'm sure there are people like that. And I've talked to several people who I'm like, wow, you are underpaid compared to the rest of the industry. So I'm not saying that like everyone is overpaid, but I think the median software engineer is probably overpaid.
Huh.
I have no data behind that. It's just my gut feel.
Who needs data? You got guts.
I know. Why do you need data when you have such good guts?
Mm-hmm.
All
Okay,
right.
let's do our next question.
Okay, I'll read this one. This comes from an anonymous listener who says, I am a software developer that was promoted earlier this year. I received a 10% raise with this promotion. Since working for this company for some time, this is the first substantial raise I have received. Previous raises ranged from nothing to sub-inflation raises. Today, my manager informed me that at my annual review, I would not be receiving a raise. My manager said this has nothing to do with my performance, but more with the fact that I was already given a raise with my promotion earlier this year. I was caught off guard by this and did not really know how to feel about the situation. Does this seem reasonable? Is there something worth following up on with my manager? If so, what are good questions to ask?
I think the solution space of ways to be weird about raises is pretty huge. Like, it happened, so it's reasonable to some degree at that company. I don't know what the norm is, though. This feels weird to me, especially if you have scheduled annual raises that you just wouldn't get one.
Mm-hmm.
There can be pay bands sometimes, though. But if you just got promoted, you would theoretically be in a higher pay band. So I have heard of there being limits at certain levels of how much you can make. But if you just got promoted, you have a higher pay band, presumably, if that's the problem. So you wouldn't be in this situation of like, we literally cannot pay someone in this position more than you are making right now.
Yeah, I think the pay band cap is unlikely to be coming into play here.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be 10% more than what you were making when you felt underpaid before for having no raises or sub-inflation raises for several years. So it does feel weird.
Yeah, to get no raise at all is weird. I would normally expect at least a cost of living adjustment, even if you had already gotten a promotion that year.
Yeah, I agree.
However, I do know of companies who have a no raise policy, or just cost of living policy, except for promotions. And promotion time is the only time you get substantial pay increase.
But it doesn't sound like this feels like some weird combination of those things where they do get regular raises even though they didn't sound.
No, but here it says previous raises ranged from nothing to sub-inflation, which means maybe they were just doing cost of living or less. And then the promotion, you got a 10%.
Here I have on my desk this piece of paper that says the cost of living went down in the last year. You should be thankful we're not docking your pay. Yeah, it sounds like it doesn't sound like a no raise except for promotion place. It just sounds like they sometimes do raises and they didn't for this one. It doesn't sound right, but it feels like their policy is already weird if they give no to sub-inflation raises before.
Yeah.
Like saying to them, this doesn't make any sense. I don't think they'll be like, you're right. We have been doing it wrong this whole time. Here's some more money. Because it's already messed up.
All I did was look at my manager confused, and he wrote me a check.
No, the time that you can do that is in the job interview.
Right.
Yeah, so I feel like the first question is pretty clear. Like, no, this is weird, but what do they do about it?
Yeah.
This is weird in terms of like broadly across the industry. This feels strange.
Yes, agreed on that point. What I would do in this situation is I would start doing some investigative research at this company and try to figure out what is the norm. And am I just getting shortchanged compared to all my peers, or is this how this company does compensation? And the answer to that question will inform, I think, whether I'm going to stay. Because long term, if you have to go 5 years between substantial raises, you're going to be way below market after not long.
Yeah. I've worked at places that have no formal raise process, and it's down to you asking about it and kind of pestering and maybe getting told no and then pestering later. And I've worked at places that have very rigid, formal, like small range of numbers for specific criteria raises. And I feel like your plan of attack for those is very different. One of them, it's like, what do you do the whole year to go through this defined formal process? And the other one is like, how do you make people feel like you deserve it when you ask for it?
Yeah.
I feel like this is kind of this weird uncanny valley in between those, where there's some indication of some structure because you got a promotion. So it's not just like a flat culture, like everyone lives in a commune and money is a figment of your imagination. But it still seems like you have to do a lot of asking for stuff. My annual review, I would not be receiving a raise. So there's this expectation that raises come at annual reviews.
Yep.
I don't know. This feels hard.
I mean, I would ask, like, what is the norm here? I guess I'm just not as bashful about asking comp questions to my management as many people are. And I would just say, like, what should I expect for the next few years? I know you can't promise me, but like, can you give me a historical indicator? Like, I know I know the raises I've gotten over the last few years, but what are my peers doing? What's like the average for my team?
That's a really good question. What's the average for my team? Because what you really want to know is like, how much does each person on my team make? And that's a hard question for your manager to answer.
I don't think you need that. I think you can just ask like what the percentage increases have been year over year. And I think that'll tell you if you're basically walking into a slump on your pay.
Yeah.
Because, the industry, like we were talking, is pretty hot and has been for years. And, it's not uncommon for developers to get 5+% year over year for the last 10 years, and you compare that to like sub-inflation. So inflation's around 2%. You compare like a 5% annual raise to like a 1.5% annual raise over the course of 10 years. You're talking about a huge difference in money, probably double, right?
Yeah. I'm also struck by the fact that, you got promoted and then this was a performance review. So your performance was presumably good.
Promotable even.
Yeah. Like why? I feel like you have an argument to make there about like rewarding good performance. And that's I think one of the purposes of performance reviews, not the only one, but
well, to play devil's advocate I would say you already got the reward for that, and that was a 10% pay increase.
Yeah, I think I just have this baseline assumption that a company with enough structure to have yearly performance reviews and some idea of yearly raises, even though they're explicitly saying you're not going to get one, it seems wrong to say you get no raise even though your performance has been fine or excellent even.
Yeah.
That feels like a separate concern to me than a raise for a promotion.
I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm thinking more from the context of startups where I was in management, and I think if I gave someone a 10% like out of cycle raise, I would not be inclined to give them another massive raise at their performance review, say 3 months later or 6 months later.
Yeah. So they still don't have a firm plan of action, right? I guess their plan of action is ask your manager if this is the norm and what they should be able to expect going forward.
Yeah, and also because that question they might not want to answer, because management doesn't like to commit themselves to future promises like that too much, especially when it comes to comp. But you could at least say historically, what's the rest of the team doing? Am I above average, below average? Where am I? And maybe, I might even come in and say, look, I'm expecting a 5% raise this year. What is it going to take for me to earn that? And the good news is your annual review hasn't happened yet. So there's still time, I think, to negotiate that. If this was happening like after your annual review, you might be out of luck till next year.
No, it did.
I said...
It happened at the annual review.
It says, my manager informed me that at my annual review, I would not be receiving a raise. I interpreted that to mean that, hey, looking forward to your annual review, you're not going to be getting another raise. That's how I interpreted it. But you may be right, and if that's the case, then sorry.
Either way, that's a good question to ask for next year.
I would have that hard conversation and say, I would even throw out a number and say, look, I think I deserve a 5% raise, and bring a little bit of market data. We've talked about this before. You can search online and eliminate all the data that doesn't support your case. Also, this may be a time where you need to start interviewing to see what the job market in your area really looks like. And maybe you're topped out. Maybe you're at the top of your range for your experience level that the market will bear. So you need to find that out. And then I think you'll have a little bit more legs to stand on when you bring this to your manager.
All right. Question answered?
Yeah.
What can people do if they want more questions answered?
Go to softskills.audio, click the giant $sign, and then a random video will appear making fun of you for making too much money for doing too little work as a software developer.
Okay. Then once you're done watching that video, click the Ask Us a Question button. And thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.